The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference. I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show, and a friend of mine is coming back to do another show, and it's going to be a very interesting one, and I'm sure that everybody is going to find it very intriguing. With that said, he is an author, and he's done a lot of books, but I'll give you some of the names if you don't mind, because I think it's important that you get a hold of these books whenever you can. And the book is called Success by Default. That was his first book, and it's the depersonalization of corporate America. Where did my America go? The next one is the conversion prophecy, and that's another one that's really interesting. And soon to be released are mental agility, how to shape your mind for greater success, and Under the Divi Tree, which I think is something that everybody's going to want as soon as they can. And it's written for a Hollywood screen, so you can imagine how interesting it is. Now, with that said, I would like to introduce my guest, who is Michael Solomon. And Mike, what are your feelings about the demonstrations taking place in many cities in America?
Well, good afternoon, Susan. Thank you for having me on again. It's absolutely bonkers. I don't know what's going on. I mean, they call it crazy because they say it's systematic racism that's causing it, and it's not. And they call them peaceful demonstrations. I didn't know that setting fire to a building after you lock people into it is peaceful demonstrations. As far as I'm concerned, it's attempted murder. I mean, this is ridiculous. The things that are going on in cities like Seattle and Portland, Oregon, and the stuff going on in New York is frightening. I mean, I grew up in New York. I was a detective in the New York Police Department for a number of years, and let me tell you, it's when I see what's going on today, and I look at the streets and I look at some of the news media, I'm appalled at what's happening. Absolutely appalled. It is not demonstrations. Believe me, we had demonstrations because when I grew up, and they were demonstrating against the Vietnam War in the 70s and everything else. And the biggest problem we had was students locking themselves into the campus at Columbia University. Students for the Democratic Society, they weren't burning books in the library. They weren't wrecking the place. They just locked themselves in and said, we're taking over the school, and that's it. They didn't destroy anything. They didn't destroy property, other than maybe a bonfire out in the courtyards or something, but that was about it. It's not like it is today. They weren't armed. There were no weapons involved. They weren't throwing bricks and frozen bottles of water at the police. They weren't hitting them with laser beams and blinding them. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is out and out terrorism. I don't care what you call it. It's terrorism.
So what do you attribute to the fact that things have changed? I mean, you're right about the Vietnam War, because I was one of the people, if you will, who stood in front of Columbia University and saying, send those soldiers home. I mean,
did I arrest you? I don't remember. I don't.
No, you didn't. But you know what? You might have wanted to. But
I'll tell you who I did. I'll tell you who I did take in was guys like Mark Rudd, who was running it at the time, and it was crazy. But it's what do I contribute to? I contributed to Antifa. Antifa considers themselves they say they're a far-right group and they're anti-fascist. How could you be anti-fascist when you're acting like fascists? When you're acting like Gestapos and you're armed with bricks and guns in some cases, and firebombs and lasers, and you're physically assaulting people. There was a scene, a woman with a walker, about 85 years old, just on the streets. They walked up to her, smacked her around, and poured a bucket of paint over her head. I mean, this is ridiculous. What they did today in Portland was horrendous. They broke into a Ronald McDonald's hospital for disabled children, terrorized them, and destroyed the hospital. They were wrecking the place. There's no semblance of right from wrong, and there's people in the streets who are innocent, who think they were innocent. They started that way, and they get caught up in this violence because they don't know right from wrong. Laws don't matter to them. They don't care about the laws. They don't care about anything else. And now what you've got is you've got you've got all these administrations, mayors and the governors that are just out there having a field day. They're domestic terrorism, and the Democratic administrations, and I hate to say it, but if you look at all these cities where all these riots are happening, it's all Democratic administrations. They just don't care. They don't care. They talk about Black Lives Matter. How about the innocent black kids that are being shot in the inner cities every day? There isn't a weekend goes by where dozens of people aren't shot in Chicago, and half a dozen to 15 people are killed. Some of them as young as a year old. I mean, what did these kids do to deserve this? I mean, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And the police department's hands have been tied by the mayors and the governors of these cities and states.
Isn't it a politicized movement? Because when you think about it, and the mayors and the governors are not doing anything about it. In fact, they're almost encouraging it because it sounds like that's the only way that they're going to be elected again. So this is a very politicized thing, Michael.
They'll never be elected. They'll never be elected if they keep this up. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. This is law and order. This is the foundation of America. This is right from wrong. You know, the people, they say, well, they want to get rid of the Ten Commandments. They want to take "In God We Trust" off of the money. They want to take "Under God" out of the Pledge of Allegiance. This is horrendous. This is absolutely horrendous. There's no semblance of right from wrong. You just can't do this. Law and order is the Ten Commandments are the foundation of every law in this country. When you get down to Ten Commandments and you look at them, thou shalt not commit murder, thou shalt not covet thy neighbors, thou shalt keep the Sabbath holy. People said to me once, well, what is a Sabbath? I said, you never heard of blue laws in America, where where businesses have to shut down on the Sabbath? I said, it's absolutely ridiculous. Thou shalt not steal. This is the Bible of law and order in the United States, in the world, as a matter of fact. These aren't just laws here. There are murder laws and larceny laws all over the world.
Just for curiosity, Michael, I'm just interested in understanding. Let's assume that you're running for an office, albeit maybe a mayor or a governor, and you see what's going on. How would you handle it?
How would I handle it? I would sit down with my commissioners, my police commissioners, and my fire commissioners, and I would turn around and I'd say, listen, you are in charge of law and order in this city. Anybody breaks the law from day one, I don't care if they break a window or they assemble unpeaceably, they are to be arrested and not released. They are to be held in jail on bail, period. That's it. Rudy Giuliani did that. In the 70s when he was mayor in the 90s when he was mayor of New York, and Bloomberg followed him right after that. Look what happened to crime in New York. It took a nosedive. Right. The broken window, what they used to call the broken window policies in New York, work. If you stop them and you arrest them for breaking windows and jumping turnstiles, and they used to have the squeegee men in the streets washing windows and cars and everything else and begging for money. If you stop it at that level, it'll stop further up. You know, you talk about trickle-down economics. This is trickle-up criminology. Because what happens is they say, hey, wait a minute, if I'm going to get arrested for this, the last thing I'm going to do is go out there and shoplift, or I'm going to boost a car or steal a car. So it cuts crime down. You stop it at the beginning, and it doesn't become systematic. That's the problem. That's the problem.
You know,
it works.
Yes. And you know what, Michael? The interesting thing is people think that it's only blacks, or shall I call them African American?
Don't get me started. You call them what you want, Susan, African American, blacks. You know, I got to tell you something. I'm going to just take an aside for a second, okay?
Sure.
We can't say N. We're not allowed to say that word, okay? Mm-hmm. But you get people like Oprah on TV all day long, and she says it. Why does she say it? Because she uses the initial N. Okay? If I tell you I'm dropping the F-bomb, do you know what's in my mind? Do you know the word I'm trying to say without saying it? So if I say to you, he's an N, do you know what I'm saying in my mind, what I mean? Of course I do. So am I promoting the word by saying that? Am I calling somebody an N? And I don't even have to spell out the rest of it by saying that. Saying N is like saying don't instead of do not. It's a contraction. I'll be damned if I don't know what she's trying to tell me. So when people like that keep saying, well, I don't say the whole word, I only use the letter N. Well, I don't know what you mean. So they're pushing this whole race card. And that's the problem. And when you get down to racism, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Let me give you a couple of examples, okay?
Sure.
They keep saying there's systematic racism in police departments all over the country. Absolutely wrong. The statistics don't even bear it out. There's no stereotype about killing by the police, and this is what they tell us. First of all, systematic racism means that it's done according to a fixed plan or a system methodically, and that's not true. It's not happening. And here are the actual statistics. I'll give you a couple of cases, and this is right from the news, too, and the media.
Okay.
In July of 2016, Michael Johnson, who was a black man in Dallas, you probably remember this, shot and killed 5 white Dallas police officers.
Right.
Okay? This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this black man was violent, a racist individual who seeked out and only killed white police officers. On May 25th, 2020, in Minneapolis, okay, Derek Chauvin kneeled on the neck of George Floyd, a handcuffed black man, until he died. The second white officer and a black officer immobilized Floyd. An Asian-American police officer stood by and watched. This proves, according to the press and the media, that police officers are violent, racist individuals who seek out and kill black people, but Michael Johnson in Dallas wasn't racist, not at all, okay? Stereotypes are used to justify discrimination and violence. It's amazing. Michael Johnson wanted to kill white officers because police killings of black people and were alleged by law officers. Here's the actual statistics, okay? A 2016 Harvard research study found that black people are no more likely to be killed by a police officer than a white person. And a 2019 study published in the National Academy of Sciences found no evidence of anti-black disparities amongst police officers and fatal shootings. It's amazing. It's amazing. In 2019, 1,004 people, mostly white, were shot by police, according to the Washington Post. It's just unbelievable. And in 2019, last year, in New York City, where there are 36,000 police officers, there are only 35 instances in the entire year where an officer fired his weapon. 5 of the suspects in those 35 cases were black, and they were all armed with a deadly weapon. One of them was armed with a car, and he tried to run over a police officer. That's 0.0001 or 1/10,000th of 1% of police officers use their guns in New York. It's a known fact. And the Washington Post will bear this out, and the studies in Philadelphia bear it out. It's a known fact that a black police officer is more likely to shoot a black person than a white police officer. That's a fact.
You know, Michael, one of the things that I'm interested in understanding is that, you know, there's always been a controversy about the police. You know, are they search and seizures issue is a very important issue, things of that nature. Now, the question becomes, is it now, because of Trump, that people want to maybe get him out, and this is the way that they do it? Because I don't think
it's partially political. I agree with you there. But let me tell you a little bit about search and seizure and everything else. Okay, they did away with stop and frisk in New York, and they did away with half in the country. People don't even know what stop and frisk is. Let me explain what stop and frisk is, because when I was in the police department, we had it. Okay. And it's always been there. First thing we did was every police officer in New York City carries in his book of papers or his memo book a card which is known as a stop and frisk card. I don't remember the form number. It doesn't matter. Okay. But here's the way stop and frisk works. You are not allowed to search an individual. You can only pat him down on the outside of his clothes. If you feel something that you believe may be a weapon or illegal drugs or whatever, you at that point are allowed to take the search a little further and go in and empty his pockets. So you see somebody walking down the street in the middle of August, and he's wearing an overcoat, and it's 95 degrees out, and he's got a stiff leg and he's walking like he's got a stiff leg, and you're under the impression that he might have a gun down his pants leg, you are allowed to stop him under suspicion, not under reasonable, not under reasonable cause, but under suspicion that he might be carrying a weapon. So you stop him and you frisk him. You just pat down the outside of his leg. You feel what you believe is a shotgun or a rifle down his leg. At that point, you can search him. Now you get down and you find out that he's got a bad leg and he taped a broomstick to his leg so he keeps it stiff and he doesn't bend it and hurt himself, and it's done for medical purposes or whatever, even if it may be a silly thing. Mm-hmm. You say, I'm sorry, I apologize, and you let him go. But that card that you carry with you called the stop and frisk card, what you have to do is you have to fill it out with his name, address, his pedigree, what he was, male, white, black, white, whatever, Asian, and the reason you stopped him and what you found, and that's it. That's all you do. You fill out that card, you turn it into your police precinct. At the end of the day, it gets filed away. It's done for two reasons, to protect you and to protect the suspect. It doesn't mean anything. Now, you reach down and you find a gun, you can throw him up against the wall and search him. Nobody is indiscriminately walking down the street and just saying, hey, there's a guy walking across the street, black, white, Indian, Asian, whatever, I'm going to take him apart and search him. It's never been done, not that I can think of. Okay?
Right.
Now they come up with this thing that they don't want police officers to put down the race of the person who's walking down the street, or if he's been arrested, or the suspect. You can't broadcast that he's a male black, because then everybody's going to be looking for a male black. Baloney. So now you got a robbery in a liquor store at gunpoint, and you put out a description. It's a guy wearing a lumberjack shirt, red and black checkered shirt, running down the street carrying a gun. But you can't say he's black or white. And here comes some kid walking out of a building 2 blocks away wearing a black and red checkered shirt, and he happens to be a black kid. The guy who stuck up the store is white or whatever. It doesn't matter. And he sees the police, and maybe he had a marijuana cigarette, and he throws it, and he starts running. The police start chasing him. What's the situation going to be there? So are you increasing the possibility that somebody's going to get hurt? Yes, because nobody thinks outside the box. Nobody thinks ahead. They just don't know. They don't know what the consequences are going to be down the road. It sounds silly, but that's what happens.
I know, and there are stereotypes. A lot of people, again, as we were describing before, they call themselves African Americans.
They don't know what they are. They were colored. They were African Americans. They were Negroes. They were blacks. They were brown. I mean, be what you want, But and then all of a sudden now they got corporate blackmail, I call it. Well, I'm black. You can't use the word. Oh, really? So they got Crayola crayons now. It was taking the black crayons out of boxes. They got Starbucks. All their baristas are wearing Black Lives Matter. Well, where are they in Chicago? The Black Lives Matter, where they're killing innocent people, 20 and 30 a week. 1,400 people died in Chicago last year from gunfire in black neighborhoods, shot by other blacks.
Yeah.
And less than 40 black suspects were shot in the United States by 300,000 police officers. So you tell me where the systematic racism is. It's amongst their own people. Yeah. And they want to know why they're targeted. Blacks make up 13% of the population in the United States, but they account for 63% of the violent crime. Who's targeting who?
Yeah, that's really a point, and we have to pay attention to that. Now, with that said,
and these aren't my figures. These are FBI figures. These are figures out of the Washington Post and the New York Times and liberal newspapers. But they don't put it on the front page. They bury it somewhere after the sports pages and after the obituaries.
And Michael, do people read? I mean, most people that I know do read, but on the other hand, a lot of the people that I know, as well as the people that I don't know, they don't read.
Well, you ask anybody today under the age of 25, I'll even say under the age of 30, if they read a newspaper or they listen to the news, it doesn't have to be regularly, at least a couple of times a week. And the answer is no. They don't care. And nobody, and you want to know why the reading levels are low in this country? Do you know the New York Times prints their newspaper with a 10th grade English grammar? Why? Because nobody knows how to read. When was the last time you actually opened up a newspaper and you had to go to a dictionary and look up a word that was published?
Right. Forget it. Everybody is going digital. That brings me to something that I think it's important, because only a couple of days, Mr. Biden, he decided to have a woman who is both Indian and she's
Jamaican.
A combination of things. And the fact of the matter is that's a pretty good match.
For who?
And today
she keeps telling people she's Afro-American. There's an African molecule in her blood system. She was born in California. The family moved to Canada. She spent 14 years of her life, I believe, in Canada, then came back. It's a known fact that she slept her way up to the position she got when she ran. Willie Brown doesn't deny it. He was a married man who had an affair with her. She's a junior senator from California. She's only in the Senate, 3 years? She berated Judge Kavanaugh. She said that all women have to be believed, and when Biden had his problem with that one woman who came forward, she said, I believe her, and now she doesn't believe her. I mean, she's all over the place. Whatever suits her is where she's going to be.
But Michael, here's the thing. She's a woman, okay?
So?
She doesn't, we're dealing with
Hillary was a woman. At least she had better credentials. She was a Secretary of State. She was a senator. Look what happened to her.
So your prediction is, and I know it's a really strange question to ask you, but what is your prediction for the election coming up in November?
You could take this to the bank. Trump is going to win every state but 5. He's not going to win New York. He's not going to win New York, Oregon, Washington, California, or Hawaii. That's it.
So what I'm hearing is that you really do think he stands
the people are fed up. What is their campaign based on? It's based on a virus. It's based on the coronavirus, which is certainly not his fault. And look what he's done. Even in the middle of the coronavirus, he's bringing back the economy. We still have the best economy in the world. When you look at what's happened to Europe and China, not only because of the virus, but because of everything else and our trade policies, it's amazing. Look at the stock market. Look at retail sales in this country. Look at the fact that the dollar is a little low. What does that mean when the dollar is low? It means that people come here and spend money, or they spend money in America. Look at the gas prices. I filled up at the pump the other day at $1.89. I haven't seen gas prices like that in 10 years.
Right.
In 10 years.
So what is your hope for the future of America? It sounds like you're pretty positive.
I am frightened that if the Democrats get in with their far-left policies in this $3 trillion green energy bill, which is a joke anyway, and they want to stop fracking, and they're going to rate the price of oil is going to go back up to $4 to $5 a gallon. That's a fact. They want to get rid of all the. They want to shut down ANWR. They want to tear the wall down that's stopping the illegal immigration in this country and all the crime and the drugs that are coming in. We can't eliminate it completely, but we certainly can control it. It's amazing. They want to go back to China policies with trade. It's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. And they are praising all these groups, like what's going on in Seattle, in Chicago, and Portland, Oregon. I mean, they think that these are just peaceful demonstrations. That's what they keep saying. I turn on the news in the morning and I listen to all stations. I listen to Fox, I listen to MSNBC, I listen to CNN, and I scratch my head and I'm saying, am I in 3 different worlds? It's amazing. I have not. As soon as I heard about the McDonald's this afternoon and what happened in Portland, Oregon, I turned on CNN and MSNBC. They didn't report it. These guys broke in. They tried to burn down a hospital with disabled children in there, and they didn't report it.
Right.
Why not?
So that's a good question. Why not? The media.
I don't know why not. I don't want because people have said to me, why does the media and why does everybody hate Donald Trump so much? I bring it down to one word: jealousy. The man got up and he said, listen, I'm not praising him. There's a lot of things he says and he does which I do not agree with. I wish he would stop tweeting, and I wish he would stop. Can you imagine if he didn't tweet? If he never had a fight with the press, and he just did what he did. He'd be the greatest president ever. The problem is they pick on what he says and what he does, because they're not going to praise him. So somebody's got to praise him. So he praises himself. But I bring it down to one word and one word only, and the word is jealousy. He promised the American people he was going to do something, and he did. He did more in the first 3 years of his presidency than anybody in the history of this country. He got the economy out of a hole. They keep saying it was Obama's economy. Obama's economy. He took over. It was like 7% unemployment. Patient rate was horrendous. He got that back up. He got the unemployment down below 4.5%, down below 4%, almost 3.5%. I mean, it was crazy. We were starting to get respect all over the world. He took on China, and which nobody's ever done. He's got oil prices down. We are now the oil producer of the world. Look what happened today. People don't realize it because CNN does not publish this. Saudi Arabia and Israel jointly launched a satellite into space, a communications satellite, is a joint venture. They're making peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And what do you think is going to happen down the road? You know who's panicking now over that? Iran. Oh, my God, this can't happen, Jordan and Israel have been friends, not you know what I mean? They're not buddies, but you can cross the border. You can go back and forth. You don't have to worry about getting shot in Jordan as a Jew. You don't have to get worried about being hurt in Israel as a Jordanian. Now they got the Saudi Arabians doing that, okay? When they had the bombing just now, that bomb that went off in Beirut, it was Israel who sent planes over there to bring the people back to the Israeli hospitals to take care of them. I mean, Iran is sitting there shaking in their boots because if Israel and Saudi Arabia come together, I mean, and they start to make peace. Listen, I don't expect this to happen overnight, but nobody's reporting it. It's a major coup in the Middle East. So
it's an interesting thing, Michael, because I've discussed with people, why don't they ask the right questions right now about all the different things that are going on in our country and in our world? And I find that nobody wants to talk about it. All they want to talk about is how they hate Trump. But, you've explained your side of things, and I hope that people listen to you because it is important to get both sides of the coin, Again, so I want to thank you.
Jealousy is probably the biggest emotion that causes hate. People hate other people, or they hate because of jealousy. Because, gee, I wish I could do that. I hate him now. I mean, that's exactly what it is. The man promised everything he knew. He laid it all out. He told you what he was going to do, and he went ahead and he did it. I mean, he said, I'm going to build a wall, and all. You don't hear him talking about the wall anymore. Why? Because it's almost finished.
That's right.
Did Mexico pay for it? Maybe not directly, but indirectly they did through trade. The money we made now out of Mexico was certainly helping to pay for it. But,
Yeah, that's a great story that you need to tell again, and because immigration is a really interesting issue. Now, I want to thank you, Michael, for being on the Susan Brender Show. But before we go off, give everybody your website, if you will, and how they get your books.
Well, they can reach me at one. I have two websites. One is wheredidmyamericagO.com. It all leads to the same website, which is Success Talk Inc., where I do motivational and political speaking all over the country. Mostly now it's online, but it's being done. And they can reach me there. If anybody wants to email me, Michael at successtalkinc.com. That's Inc, I-N-C, not I-N-K. And that's where they can reach me. It'd be my pleasure.
Well, my guest again has been Michael Solomon, who's an author, who's a pundit, who's got a really strong opinion about things, and we're so delighted that you did the show with me. Thank you, Michael, for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Susan, it was my pleasure. I'll come back anytime you need me.